everyone. Welcome to COS Today. Dale Parrish, your host, along with Ken Kashuba, co-host, State Communications Coordinator for the state of Indiana. How you doing, Ken?
Doing pretty good, Dale.
Turn your volume up a little bit there so I can hear you. Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you fine. Hear you fine. I had
Okay,
the, I,
just
it
checking.
was
Just
it was me. I had my volume turned
all
down.
right. Don't scare me like that. I mean, last week we had all kinds of problems.
Folks, we're a little skittish, I guess. So we've had some technical issues in past broadcasts, so we're very skittish about audio and video and so forth. So I know it's all part of the business here, part of the business. Uh, well, Ken, I don't normally do this, but from time to time I like to throw these numbers up there. Tonight is broadcast number 363. You've been on board for 221 of those. So I update that number every week, but I don't show it every week. But I just felt like doing it tonight. Okay.
All right.
And of course, as usual, we're trying to save the country with Convention of States. Saving the country with Convention of States. And folks, if you follow us, if you understand what we're all about, I think you would have to agree with us that every day there are more and more situations where a Convention of States is what would be needed to resolve this problem or that problem. Uh, so, saving the country with Convention of States. That's what we're all about. Well, Ken, let's get right into one of our new features that we've just recently. Well, that's why it's new because we just recently introduced it to everyone, and the feature is called "Are You Serious?" And so we're looking at playing video clips of situations that I think warrant the question: Are you really serious? That is that really happening? And I think we all see these from time to time. So let me get to the one that we wanted to bring to you this evening. So I think you're going to find this very interesting. So here we go. Okay.
My name is Sophia Hunt, and I'm Turning Point USA's Club America chapter president at Westfield High School in Westfield, Indiana. At our local Rock the Block event last week, it's a back to school event, I was working with my Turning Point chapter, my secretary and treasurer, and we were talking to families about what Turning Point was, what it does within our school, and what we stand for, and handing out the cutest red, white, and blue bracelets. A little boy came up to our booth, and he tried to grab a bracelet, and I saw Mom come and drag him away. I then looked at her and I said, "Hey, are you okay?" She then immediately responded, "Why the F are you asking me if I'm okay?" I was flabbergasted. I then said, "Your son wanted a bracelet, here's a bracelet." And she slapped it out of my hand and started cursing at us, screaming at us, and calling people we support racist, homophobic, and disgusting, saying, quote unquote, "You guys are supporting a piece of sh." And I said, "I hope you have a better day." She then stormed off and was still yelling at us in front of parents and children probably between the ages of 6 and 10. And the crazy part is that she admits it in her own video that she flipped out and that she was seeing red.
Like, I don't know why, I forget what she said exactly, because at that point I was seeing red and everything was out the fucking window at that point. And I turned around and I said, "I don't like that you guys are supporting that piece of shit human," talking about Charlie Kirk.
And those were her words, not mine. And I can tell you this, I wasn't seeing red. I knew exactly what was happening and when it was happening. Then she took it online. She started posting videos calling me racist, homophobic, transphobic, and all these other crazy names. And she hopes this follows me into college and my future employment, and attacked my parents, and even said, "Yes, I am going to attack a child, and I am going after a child."
Yes, I am going after a child who is the president of Turning Point and likes to post racist, homophobic, transphobic things on the internet.
She also accused me of taking photos of pictures of children in bathrooms, which is completely false. I'm 17 years old, and this is a grown woman who has continued making videos about me because she disagrees with my politics. But here's what she doesn't understand. This isn't going to hurt Turning Point at our school. Our chapter has over 200 amazing members, and this year we're bringing in state and local leaders, having real conversations and getting students involved in what's happening in Indiana across the country, because these are things that are affecting us on a day-to-day basis. You can agree with us, you can debate us, and you can disagree with us, but trying to publicly intimidate and humiliate teenagers isn't going to silence us, nor is it good activism. But Turning Point at Westfield is growing, and we are just getting started.
That's I'll tell you, that's amazing. She's a very impressive young lady.
She sure is, and another person has no right to claim that she's an adult.
Yeah,
As far as I'm concerned.
I mean, I mean, it's fitting. Are you serious? Are you really serious? That's something else. Maybe we ought to have her on as a guest sometime. I
We
think
should bring her on. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see how
Yeah.
that whole event turned out for them. And
Yeah.
that high school is in Westfield, where my son and daughter-in-law live, and some of our other Convention of State volunteers reside as well. So yeah, I when you run up against somebody who acts like that in public, it makes you actually afraid for these students that are out there really doing well. They're doing their constitutional duty. They are, and they're not protesting in the streets. They're not running around with signs. They're actually trying to help educate people, or at least have a decent conversation. I think that's the part that really rubs me wrong.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Very good. We definitely want to make a note to try and contact her and get her on. We've had some other Turning Point individuals on. They've been
Yeah.
good guests, and especially right after the Charlie Kirk assassination, we had a few people on. So everyone has been very impressive that we've had on, and I think we definitely like to have her on. Okay, well, let's before we get to the first segment, we have one more thing here. I want Marengo Mike to give us a little message here on how to share and like our program. So here's Marengo Mike.
The program? Please be sure and hit the like and subscribe buttons along with the notifications bell so you'll always know when we go live. We appreciate your support and hope you'll join us on our mission to use the Constitution to save the Constitution. Now, back to the program.
Yeah, that Marengo Mike, he's got that down good, doesn't he? He knows how to do
He
that.
delivers a good message. Yeah.
Yeah, he does. Well, Ken, let's get into our first segment here tonight, and that's the In Focus segment. And in this segment, we bring on some guests, and we all just briefly talk a little bit about what's caught our interest, what's caught our focus here in what's going on currently in the world. So, we've got some guests to help us sort through this all tonight. And let's start with our newsletter editor, young lady, Susan Lyon. Hello, Susan.
Hi, Dale. Hi, Ken.
Hi, Susan.
How are you guys
Hey,
doing?
Susan. Thank you for coming on. Then we have a young man out of South Carolina named Ryan Noblet.
Good evening, everybody.
Ryan, glad to have you with us. And met Ryan at the summit back in, it's been over a year. Or was
Not
this-
yet. It was mid-September last year. It's almost been a year.
September of last year. That's right. Been almost a year. Met Ryan there, and Ryan has come out of our Leaders Launchpad program, and so we've had some other individuals out of that program, and they're really, all of you, a very, very impressive group of people. So, speaking of impressive people, is our next guest, Mr. David Copeland, State Director out of the state of Kansas, the 20th state to pass a resolution for convention. Hello, David.
Hi, Dale, Ken,
Hello, David.
Susan, and Ryan. Hey, great
Yeah.
to be here with you.
Glad you could join us tonight. So, as I said, the In Focus segment is where we talk about what's of interest, what's caught our attention, caught our interest. In other words, what's our focus. Susan, we'll go ladies first here. Susan, I'm going to let you lead off. What's on your mind?
Well, thanks, Ken. First of all, I wanted to kind of set the stage. My husband, Rick, went to his high school 55th, I think it was. And his coach was still there and alive, and talked with him at length. And his coach was also his science teacher. And he's the one that helped him win a science award that actually Air Force officers came and presented to him. And he was always interested in rockets, and he's always wanted to see the Falcon Heavy launch. We went down, he's tried a couple of times, and it's always delayed and postponed. And this time he thought it's getting more regular. So he took a trip to Florida, and Sunday morning he finally got his bucket list checked off, and he's seen a Falcon Heavy launch. And he's on his way home. He should be home tomorrow. But what was really interesting about this launch, it was a great launch, but it was carrying the Nancy Grace Roman Space Telescope. And they're saying that NASA sent it up. And this is what they say about this telescope. It's called the agency's Next Generation Observatory, built to investigate some of the universe's most profound mysteries. Named for NASA's first chief astronomer, the Roman Space Telescope combines sharp infrared vision with a field of view at least 100 times larger than that of the agency's Hubble Space Telescope. Its wide, detailed surveys will help scientists study dark energy and dark matter, discover and analyze exoplanets, map billions of galaxies, examine black holes, and explore objects ranging from those in our own solar system, and they expect, to the edge of the observable universe. They're going to see space that we've never seen before. And when I read that, I was thinking of a Bible quote that came back to me about, at the time when Jesus returns, all knowledge will be increased. And I'm thinking, are we living in blessed times when all knowledge will be discovered, but we'll also be blessed to see Jesus return? I don't know. Anyway, I wanted to just say that there are so many things happening that are new knowledge being uncovered, like with medicine, with technology, with language, like AI is helping us discover old languages and interpret them, that these are really exciting times to be living in. And I saw another thing too, the Salt and Light Council about that, is it that our lives are meant to make a difference and change the world and change the nation. And I really believe that's what COS is doing. It's very important right now that we share what we know, because I think we're leading the way in knowledge and a way back to truth. So that's what I've got for you.
Susan, that's interesting that you mentioned a few of those things as far as knowledge is concerned. And, I when you started talking about that, as far as the return of Christ, There are some weather-related things that have been popped into my mind lately. I just want to throw it onto the end of what you were talking about. You know, we had some historic flooding here in Indiana just a couple weeks ago, and then we had this tremendous mudslide that happened. And now I caught just this afternoon on television. We had massive flooding in the Grand Canyon.
Yes. Yes.
You know, you put these 3 flooding events together, and of course we know, according to the rainbow, the Earth will never be flooded again. But I think they're reminders that we know the Creator is in control of weather, and a lot of times it's really just to get our attention and try and draw our attention to what's really important in life, and that is eternity.
That's right.
So, thanks for bringing that up tonight. I thought that was just interesting.
Does anyone know when was the Hubble?
Oh boy.
When was that launched or put into space? Does anyone know?
Seems like that's been up for 20 years. I could be wrong, but James Webb went up not too long ago. To be honest, I was kind of surprised to send another satellite up, to do that, because I thought James Webb was the ultimate, but evidently it doesn't do what this does.
It launched in 1990.
1990. Oh, wow. That's been 36 years ago, huh?
Yeah.
Wow.
No, it's 6 years older than I am.
Wow.
That's interesting. I know this telescope's supposed to uncover, like you said, Susan, things that we've never seen before, and other galaxies, and oh my goodness.
Yeah.
No telling what knowledge and so forth is going to come from this over time.
What's
And
awesome.
that's just a little peek behind the curtain, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
What's also interesting about that is because of light and speed of light and everything, we'll be seeing all those galaxies as they were millions or billions of years ago, not as they are now. And so we're kind of looking into the past.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Oh, really? Really?
Yes, because what we're seeing with the telescopes is electromagnetic energy. This is light or infrared or gamma or any of that. All travels at the speed of light. So if it came from a galaxy that, say, is 1 million light years away, it took a million years to get to Earth. And we're seeing light from 1 million years ago. That's what that means.
Oh. Yeah, wow.
Impressive. Yeah.
Yeah, very, very good. Very good. All right. Susan, thank you very much. I know, I'm sure I could just see Rick was just in awe. We've heard the story of Rick's early days experimenting with rockets. I think he even tried sending an animal up on one, didn't I? think he didn't he?
Yes, he sent a guinea pig.
Yes.
Yeah.
But we had those were very, very entertaining stories that he gave us. So,
Susan, are you sure he's not lining himself up to be a candidate for the next moon landing?
He told me he would go in an instant.
In a heartbeat.
Had a chance to go, he'd go. He wouldn't. I said, "You would just leave me that quick, and you would know a second thought." And he's like, "I'm sorry, but no, I would go." So, yeah.
Yeah, I imagine he was there was a thrilling experience for him. So maybe we can get him on an upcoming In Focus segment and have him talk about his experience.
That'd be great.
I'm sure he'd love to.
Yeah, I'm sure he would be able to. All right, let's move on here. Ryan, what's on your mind, young man?
Well, this little piece of pizza over here that we call South Carolina, we are suffering from major election fatigue because in the summer, in an off year, in a midterm year, it's not very often that you have 4 statewide elections, but that is our fate here in South Carolina. Now, we don't have what's called a first past the post system in South Carolina. You have to have a majority to win. And so if no one gets 50%, the top 2 go to a runoff. That's how all the statewide races work. So we had that with governor, the gubernatorial races, and then when Senator Graham died, we had was it like a 6+ way? There were so many names in the primary. Honestly, half of them I don't remember. I remember like 4 or 5 of them. There were a lot, but we had a runoff with Darlene Graham and Ralph Norman, and Darlene Graham won that on Tuesday. And there was a runoff debate, and it was about an hour long, and I thought it was kind of cool to have a runoff debate for the Senate race. I mean, this is all happening within a few weeks. It's a very compressed election cycle. We went from Lindsey Graham, being tragically dead in early July to the runoff election being done at the end of August. That's a very compressed election cycle for the primary. And the primary basically decides the general election in statewide races in South Carolina because it's a solidly Republican state. Chance that the Democrats actually win the Senate races are pretty small, broadly speaking. It's been that way for about 40 years. At least, a decent amount of time. Anyway, so the debate, there was one interesting thing that kind of caught my attention from it. There was a line that I probably would not personally have said if I was asked the question, but it was Darlene Graham's responded to a question about Taiwan and said, "I'm going to be fully honest with you. I'm not that informed on foreign policy." But
yeah, that's been played a number of times on the news.
Oh yeah. I mean, if anybody says that in a campaign, you guarantee it that clip, kind of a clip, is going to go out. It's that's prime campaign. Like that's why I wouldn't say something like that. I mean, hopefully, but she ended up winning. It was about 53-46. It was basically Low Country versus the Upstate. Ralph Norman is my congressman. He is the one in the runoff. And District 5 in South Carolina, where he is, that covers a lot of that area. So Rock Hill, where I'm at, the Piedmont, the Upstate, Greenville, Spartanburg, kind of that area. So he had a lot of strong support there. And then the Low Country, Charleston, Horry County, Myrtle Beach, that was pretty strong for Darlene Graham. And so she edged it out, and she ended up winning the runoff election. And she's going to continue as senator for South Carolina. So just a little bit more South Carolina news. You're probably going to get tired of South Carolina, but it's where I live. I can't help myself.
All right, good. I know. I agree with you that it does seem like Senator Graham's passing happened, and then all of a sudden there's an election going on, and Darlene Graham's having to run.
It's voter fatigue.
Happened awful fast. That happened awful fast.
And voter fatigue is a real thing in an off year to have 4 elections in 2.5 months. So basically June 11th to August 20 August 25th or whatever. 4 elections. That is rare anywhere in an off year. And those aren't local. Those are all statewide elections.
Yeah.
That's not common at all.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. What do you think her chances are of winning in the general? Do you think?
It's South Carolina. Even though she's a first-time senator, she's going to have a lot of money behind her. The party is basically going to come home. Ralph Norman's already endorsed her. He gave a very positive concession speech at the victory party, or what was supposed to be victory, but it was a watch party. I was there for it. He gave a very respectful, conciliatory concession speech, as you should, generally speaking, when you lose a primary. And he's encouraging all his supporters to vote for her in the general election. So it is very highly likely. Like I said, South Carolina's been a solidly Republican Senate state for quite a few years now. Mm-hmm. And I would say that of all the states that are possible contenders this year, you could always have an outlier fluke thing, but I don't think the probability of Darlene losing in November is super, super high. Anything can happen, but South Carolina has been very solidly Republican, even statewide, for quite a while, especially on the Senate and all that.
Yeah.
I mean, the last major challenger on the Democrat side to Lindsey Graham was, I'm trying to remember, they spent $100 million and lost pretty handedly. Ended up becoming the state party chair, I think, afterwards. But I'm trying to remember, I got a brain fart on his name now. I'm trying to remember his name, but I forgot. But anyway, that was the last serious contender. we haven't really had one since. There is going to be a challenger, but don't think they're going to win.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thanks, Ryan. Thank you. David, from the state of Kansas. What's on your mind, buddy?
Beef.
Beef?
Beef is what's for dinner.
All right. Or have you got a beef?
I have a beef. I have a beef. I have a Kansas City strip
Where's the beef? Where's the beef?
thawed out today, and I'm going to be grilling that here shortly.
Oh, are you? Okay.
But it was pretty interesting late last week when President Trump had this discussion with Glenn Beck on the Glenn Beck's radio program, and got an earful about the overregulation of the food industry. And of course, he was getting some blowback from allowing the beef coming in from South America. I don't think a lot of beef producers were real keen on that. But you didn't hear anything coming from the big four ag companies, the Tysons, the JBS, the Cargills, because they've got a monopoly. And they control how much beef goes to market. And it's pretty much the Department of Agriculture is right there with them. The inspection program for inspecting beef going to market is a throttle that is used to control the amount of beef headed to market from private, smaller producers. And so the big four have carved up that market and control it. So it's going to be very interesting if President Trump gives us an executive order deregulating the marketing, production and marketing of beef coming to market. Kansas is a free state. We can produce and sell or consume food that we make, that we produce. Other states don't have the same liberty as we do in Kansas, but we still are subject to federal meat inspection regulations, which makes it difficult for small producers to get a good price and any volume. If you can't make it, if you can't make it in with price, you got to make it up with volume, I guess. And they can't do that because the processors are limited as to when they have a federal inspector on hand. So it'll be an interesting executive order when it comes out, and how soon the big four run to court to get a stay on it. It will happen. I've talked to some Kansas producers, and they applaud what's happening, but they're not going to rush to the bank and buy more calves because they realize the judges haven't ruled yet, and that's going to happen. So I think it's something that it's an issue we'll hear more of as it develops, and I think it's something that we as Convention of States could look at as, again, a federal power to regulate interstate commerce. The inspection and throttling of the supply of meat to our markets is an overreach of that power, and
Yep.
And I think it's something that we could see at convention.
That's the second pillar of our resolution rein
Correct.
in
That's correct.
breadth and control of the federal government. That's right. David, is Texas, would Texas be the major beef producer in our country?
You know, I don't know the rankings. Texas obviously has big ranches,
Yeah.
and they put a lot of beef into market. Florida is and I understood Florida is one of the top producers because you can run more beef on an acre of Florida land than you can in Texas. And
Really?
yeah, because Texas doesn't have the all of there's some very lush parts of Texas obviously, but there's also a lot of dry
Okay.
ranching, and so Florida is very prolific.
So how does Kansas rank as far as beef producing? Do you know?
I think Kansas is in the top 5.
Really? Okay.
Definitely in the top 10, but there's a lot of beef produced in Kansas. We have a lot of feedlots, and of course we used to be the railhead for beef coming up from Texas and shipped east for processing.
Oh, really? Okay.
Used to have the big stockyards here in Kansas City. Now all that is done out in western Kansas with feedlots and things.
Yeah.
But Kansas ranks high. There's a lot of Kansas beef on your.
You ever been to stockyards? You ever been around stockyards?
Oh yes,
Yeah.
I'm actually from New Mexico, and the stockyards in Kansas are right on the New Mexico border. In fact, when you get out toward Dodge City and on out into New Mexico proper, a lot of cattle feeders in western Kansas and northeast New Mexico.
Well, decades ago, when I was in the banking industry back in Illinois, there was a major bank located over. Well, I guess it was on the Illinois side, but it was in the St. Louis area, and it was a National Stockyards, and there was a bank there, and I know I can recall going to that bank on business from time to time, and believe me, it was dirty. I mean, they were the floors were covered with, you can imagine, being in a stockyard. I just recall it being so dirty. But anyway, that has nothing.
One of the quotes you'd hear from a cattleman is very similar to what you would hear from an oil man in.
Probably so.
It's the smell of money.
Yes.
David,
All right.
could I ask David a question?
Sure.
I'm wondering about the Big Four. Are those Big Four? Are those, like, would you call them American-owned big companies, or are they foreign?
I
owned?
think there's probably some foreign ownership in some of these companies. I couldn't tell you for certain, but it's not something that I've researched. I've had people tell me that they are, but I can't confirm that.
I know that they're deep into the hog farms, so, and that's a real risk to our food chain. So it might bear looking into.
Yeah.
What you're up against, really.
Well, I think that's food security is something just like oil security, anything like that. We can't have a major piece of our food pipeline under foreign control any more than we can our oil. So yeah, it is should be a primary national interest to maintain control of that.
Yeah, foreign involvement seems to be an issue in so many different aspects of our economy anymore.
Yeah, there's some real powerful advocates for fake meat that are fighting the beef production too. I mean, they've got they've got their hands full really with everything they're up against.
All right, guys. David, thank you very much. We got to move on here. Time is limited. Ken, what's on your mind, bud?
Well, I'm just going to throw out some information regarding DSA. Now, I know in the past I've talked about obviously the percentage of people that you would find that make it to a general election that would actually, see the light of day in a country that's at least at this point half of the country at this point is supporting our current president. However, I just want to throw out some figures to let people know that the midterms are going to be very important, and we do need to get out and vote. One of the sad figures that I've seen, obviously, when we talk about New York City and Mondami, it only took 17% turnout to get that election won there in New York City. So we've got right now. You got New York City, you've got Seattle, you got possibly LA coming up. You've got these big cities that are being well, I'll call it infiltrated, because that's basically what it is, by people that basically call themselves DSA or Democratic Socialists. Quite frankly, I think you're seeing from a bunch of them at this point that they're not hiding the secret that it's basically communism. And you can pull it right out of the Communist Manifesto, the pattern and the things that they're doing. But I found it interesting that right now the amount of members in the DSA is 100,000. It's 100,000 members in the DSA, and there are already 250 people already in office. Okay, now that's not a large number. I understand when you look at it on a national basis, but it is something that starts to ring bells, especially when you look at these people are already in office, and there are 90 candidates already for the midterms. So those 90 candidates are something that where these are popping up in these cities need to be looked at closely. So one of the other interesting things I saw over the weekend was that this Claire Valdez had a celebration party, I guess, and it was a victory party, and the people that there was mostly white, younger aged women involved in this victory party. Hakeem Jeffries came on television, and during his appearance on television, this crowd started chanting, "You are next. You are next." So it's quite obvious that obviously what the plan is obviously is to infiltrate a party and take it over. And that's what we're looking at. We're looking at, a projected takeover of the Democratic Party. And obviously, at this point, with the track record of those that have been leading the Democratic Party for decades, and again, this fits in with another one of our pillars is term limits. And these people should have been term limited out a long time ago, and they might not be in this situation if we had term limits. We might have some fresh faces in there, and we wouldn't be looking at the AOCs and the other people of this radical side of the Democratic Party as being such a threat. But that's what they're doing. They're looking to swallow up the rest of the Democratic Party and go from there. So it is very important that we realize what this is and what it's about. People have to get over this this free everything approach, because that's the only thing they have. When you ask the people, these people that are out on television running their mouths, basically, if you would just stop and ask them how they plan on doing Medicare for all, how they plan on running a grocery store at 30% under any other business in the city, how this is going to happen. They don't have solutions. They only have the glorified free everything that they spit out on regular basis. I think if you go, I won't get into it now because it's just I don't know, it upsets me watching it. But if you look at the gal in Florida, who has been on a couple of the latest programs. I know you were talking earlier about, with in South Carolina, about statements that are made that come back to be played over and over. One of the clips I heard from our DSA socialist running in Florida, when she was asked what our debt is, what the current debt is in the country. Now, I think most people know right now that we're in the trillions, and we actually just slipped into 40,000 or 40 trillion, not 40,000, $40 trillion in debt. And this lady certainly it went right over her head, and she bypassed the whole question. So, I mean, when you look at this and you listen to them, they don't have answers. They don't have solutions. They're not bringing anything to the table other than the promotion of free stuff. So that was my focus for the night.
Okay, all right. Very interesting. I just got to believe the closer we get to the midterm elections, more and more Democrats are going to come out and disown these socialist candidates. That's got to be, or I should say, disown the socialism that's trying to infiltrate their party.
Might be too little, too late, Dale.
It could be. And in some respects, that's good.
Yeah.
In some respects, but yeah, it's very concerning. Very concerning. So there's no doubt about that. I just can't believe, that it's going to really take hold in places like Kansas or South Carolina or Indiana. I just can't see that it's going to take hold.
Well, I think one of the things you do have to look at is, even though we're talking about those states being red, or Indiana included, you still have pockets of blue in these red areas. And I think what you got to be careful for there is these people that infiltrate your local school boards, your local cities, that are smaller run governments. These people will pop up there too. So you have to be careful. I think nobody wants these people running your school district.
Yeah. All right, Ken, thank you. We're about out of time for this segment. I've only actually got a couple things that's caught my interest this week. I'm always listening for updates on the Iran situation, and I really do think this economic squeeze that they're doing, I think this is the answer to the situation there, and I think it's going to get to the point where I do believe the people are going to rise up and take over the country there, I think. But I think the economic sanctions, so forth, I think that's the right plan, the right way to go on this. But the other thing that caught my attention, and I told you all before we came on the air, this Lake America, Lake Ontario, I just I think things like this are such a distraction. I don't know. I don't know why our president does this. I'm sure he's got reasons. That's, of course, I guess, all part of the rift that we have going on with Canada right now. But it just seems like it's, with all the things we have going on in our country, that this just seems to me like a waste of time. Do you all feel the same way, or do you think there's some merit behind this? Anybody got a?
I'm not a huge fan of like the whole trade wars thing. I don't think they've really benefited us. In fact, I think they could possibly have hurt our economy and not been a great thing. I'm not a big fan of Mark Carney, but I don't think that Canada is the biggest threat to the United States right now. And I'm with you on this, Dale. I don't think this is the most important thing that the president should be doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, if I want to throw in a comment on your economic situation with Iran, I think it's very true. I think it's the economic side of things that will do it. I think what is not going to be showing in a very short amount of time is the fact that you've got countries around that Middle East area that are building pipelines. And it's all designed to eliminate the Strait of Hormuz as being nothing but a strait. And I mean, Iran can float their boats on it all they want. If the oil is being bypassed and goes around that, and of course it takes time to build pipelines. So this is not a short-term fix. But I think once you start seeing those pipelines completed and the oil being distributed in other ways, look at countries like Brazil that are suddenly getting involved in oil production. You've got all these countries that are now starting to look to that, and Iran's going to find themselves sitting around with their little boats and their flags in the air, and nobody wanting to pass through their strait. And I think that's the ultimate goal. I just think it's just going to take more time, and unfortunately, I think as Americans, we are short on any type of patience.
But the thing is that this had to be done. Had to be done, and no president before has had the courage to do it, because it could, in fact, turn into what it's turning into, a longer term process. So,
Yeah.
but it had to be done. It had to be done. I hope the American public understands that. All right, Susan, Ryan, David, thank you very much for participating tonight. Hope to have you back again. And so thank you very much, guys. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Dale. Have a good evening, folks.
Thank you.
Bye-bye now.
All right, Ken, another great segment on In Focus. A lot of good topics there. A lot of good topics. Well, as usual, John Ackerman has gotten on his soapbox and delivered another message to us. So this one's about the continental United States. So let's take a listen to John Ackerman on his soapbox.
John Ackerman for Convention of States. For the American Patriots to name their political body the Continental Congress was a remarkably audacious choice. In 1774, the 13 colonies represented a narrow band of settlements along the eastern seaboard of North America. Beyond them stretched an enormous, unexplored wilderness. The colonists assumed that they were living on a vast continent, but they had a very limited understanding of its true size, geography, and resources. Yet they gave their revolutionary assembly a name that suggested authority over an entire continent. Compare that to the island nation of Great Britain, to whom they were subject. The irony becomes even greater when you remember how little of North America was actually under the control of the 13 colonies. To the west of them lay immense territories inhabited by Native American nations and claimed in various ways by European powers. The Appalachian Mountains were a formidable barrier to westward expansion, and the lands beyond them were just plain unknown. The Pacific coast was thousands of miles away, and the vast interior of the continent had not been mapped or explored in any way. In practical terms, the Continental Congress represented 13 British colonies occupying only a fraction of the landmass they were claiming to speak for. Still, the name reveals something important about the Patriots' vision, and perhaps their audacity. They were not merely organizing 13 isolated colonies. They were asserting that their political cause represented something larger and more consequential. By calling themselves the Continental Congress, they implicitly projected an authority and a national identity that did not yet exist. They could not possibly have known the ultimate size, geography, or future boundaries of the United States, yet they chose a name that anticipated a continental nation. In hindsight, the name sounds almost prophetic. A small collection of colonies on the Atlantic coast boldly adopted a title that eventually would become appropriate for a nation stretching from sea to shining sea.
You know, that is quite amazing when you stop and think about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's very well put by John. It just it makes you think. Yeah, you know.
I mean, you know, these people in the 13 colonies, they had no idea what lay at that point in time beyond those mountains.
Yeah.
And that's quite interesting. John really comes up with some interesting points.
And what he said there about the middle not even being mapped. I mean, you know, here we are running around with computers in our pockets that give us everything we need to know and see
Yeah.
and what have you. And these people couldn't see over the Appalachians, and still, you know, this is where we are. It is an amazing story. I think you can only look at it and say, hey, you know, God blessed America, and that was all part of the plan.
You're talking about technology. Last Saturday I had to go up into Michigan to a funeral, as a matter of fact, and never thought to take a map. I just, you know, use my phone.
Yeah.
Google Maps, and never think about that anymore. And of course, when I grew up, you know, you had to have a map. You had to know where you were going, and you had to do that by the map. So
it's funny you mention that, because in the earliest part of my career, I was an on-the-road salesperson.
Yeah.
And I covered 3 states. I had a cardboard box in my trunk that had a slew of maps. You know, everything you could see. Yeah. So you're constantly pulling over. And the other thing was, you know, when you had to check into the office, you pulled into a gas station and got on a payphone.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
Oh my!
You
will be telling that to your grandkids in no time. They'll say, "Grandpa, what was a payphone? What's a payphone?"
All right. Let's move on. Our first presentation this evening is with a young man another young man that came out of the Leaders Launchpad program here in Convention of States, and he's now a pre-law student at Hillsdale College, Ethan Savka. And Ethan is very interested, well, of course, being in pre-law, very interested in various Supreme Court cases. And as a matter of fact, Ken, he's going to kind of do a series for us here. He's going to, in my interview with him, he's discussing a couple recent cases that the Supreme Court decided upon. So he's going to be coming back starting next month and talk about some upcoming cases.
Yeah.
So he's very interested in law, obviously, studying to be a constitutional attorney, constitutional lawyer. So, and he's at a very good school to do that, obviously.
Yeah.
So let me play the recording of my interview with Ethan Savka. So here we go. Greetings, everyone. Dale Parrish, host COS Today. Well, we have a special guest for you tonight. I have a young man that came out of one of our programs, COS Leaders Launchpad, and he's been a very good contributor for us. So let me bring on Ethan Savka. So hold on, here we go. Hi, Ethan.
Hey, everyone.
Hey, good to see you, Ethan. Ethan, now, as I mentioned, you came out of our Leaders Launchpad program, and which is designed for young leaders, young patriots, and you're out of Pennsylvania. You currently are actually a district captain in Pennsylvania still, right?
Yeah, that's right.
But that's not where you're located now. You're in pre-law at Hillsdale College, and so we're really thankful to have you here this evening. So I understand, Ethan, you being in pre-law, obviously, you're very interested in law and very interested in the Supreme Court situation, Supreme Court cases. So you're going to talk about, am I correct, going to talk about some past Supreme Court cases this evening?
That's right. I have just a little bit of a term review for the relatively recently finished Supreme Court term, October term 2025. There were obviously a large number of blockbuster cases that came out. It was really one of the biggest terms the court has had in a while now. And I figured I'd just talk a little bit about the cases. I run a publication, Emergency Docket, and our contributors have written a few pieces about these cases. So I'll talk about the pieces that they've covered a little bit. I'll also talk about the cases that their pieces have covered. I'll talk about some other
I'm glad you
cases
mentioned that. This publication that you do, what is it again?
It's an online magazine sort of thing. We write articles, and the articles are all about constitutional law, court cases, that sort of thing.
So, and if someone would want to go online to find that, how would they find it?
Sure, it's emergencydocket.com. The title of the publication is called Emergency Docket, and you can find it at emergencydocket.com. It's on at Emergency Docket on X or Twitter, however you refer to it these days. And you can type, I think if you type in Emergency Docket, you'll probably get some headlines about the Supreme Court's Emergency Docket because of just how the Google or the search engines operate. But emergencydocket.com is the place to go.
Now, Ethan, do you discuss these in any of your courses that you're taking right now? I mean, is this part of your coursework, or is this kind of a thing you do on your own?
Well, Emergency Docket is independent of anything I do at Hillsdale.
Okay.
But as far as my courses in my classes at Hillsdale go, it focuses more on, I'd say, political theory right now. There are, different law classes that I'm not in at the moment. My only law class is a very simple, basic one. And I'm really knocking out what Hillsdale calls its core curriculum at the moment. I transferred in with a lot of credits towards my major and credits towards general electives. So I still have a lot of their core to do, as well as different law classes and such.
So you are in pre-law, though. That's the ultimate goal here, is to you want to go into constitutional law. Am I correct? Is that what you're saying?
That's right. Yeah.
Okay. Well, then you should be studying the Constitution at some point in time, I would think. So.
Yeah.
Well,
I took. They have a basic class about the Constitution that I took in the spring, but frankly, I've studied the Constitution for years now. It's all very much review. Once you study the Constitution at a political level, you've covered a lot of the bases, and it's really the nitty-gritty legal questions that are left undecided, which are the kind of questions that, of course, the courts hear, and that's why, hence the interest of the courts.
Okay, all right. Well, let's get with the cases then. Which one you want to start with then?
Well, I think we have to start with birthright citizenship, right? The biggest case of the last term. It's been in the news a lot. It's interesting because it came to the court in Trump v. Casa about a year ago, the previous term before last term. And the court at that time decided not to take up the birthright citizenship question. Instead, they decided a question about universal injunctions, whether lower courts could grant a certain type of relief. And the Supreme Court decided that lower courts cannot, in fact, issue universal injunctions in that those circumstances in that case. That did not deter the lower courts from granting different forms of universal relief. They still have class actions and different forms of relief that they can administer under the Administrative Procedures Act, and just a whole bunch of different tools at their disposal. So it really was not as big of a case as it was made out to be. A lot of people expected it to be decided on the birthright citizenship question. Then it came back to the court this past term on the birthright citizenship question, but also along with a question as to whether the executive order from Trump was legal under statutory law, under a federal law. Right. So there's this question, this constitutional question, and there's also a statutory question. And normally, the Supreme Court has what it calls a canon of constitutional avoidance, where if you can decide a question of statutory law, you decide that question rather than deciding a constitutional question. Because once the constitutional question is decided, there's no political remedy for it. If you decide, oh, this law that Congress has passed means one thing, well, Congress can just change the law to mean another thing. And we saw that at least one of the justices thought that this case should be decided on statutory grounds. In fact, I would assume that most of the dissenters would have settled for that. They would have preferred not to decide the constitutional question, but Chief Justice Roberts, who authored the majority opinion, decided to decide the constitutional question.
So his decision was the constitutional decision.
It was, yeah. And since he decided, since the majority, led by Chief Justice Roberts, decided it on constitutional grounds, therefore the dissenters made a constitutional argument, because they're not just going to let the majority opinions be the only word on the subject. And Justice Thomas wrote a 90-page dissent, Justice Alito wrote a dissent, Justice Gorsuch wrote a dissent. They all weighed in on the constitutional merits. But I'm certain that if they could have decided on a statutory ground, they would have joined Justice Kavanaugh and one other justice there, which would be all that they needed to issue a narrow decision and avoid the constitutional question.
So basically, am I right? The constitutional decision was that yes, these if you're born on in the United States, you're a citizen, right?
Yeah, which the majority argues is simply upholding Wong Kim Ark. They reason that all the way from common law, British common law, to the Wong Kim Ark decision up until today. They say this has been the standard throughout the American constitutional tradition, which is a point, of course, that Justice Thomas and Justice Gorsuch disagree with and that they debate quite heavily. The question really is, what determines whether you're a citizen? Is it just being born on the land, or do the words subject to the jurisdiction thereof have a deeper meaning? And Chief Justice Roberts would agree that they have a meaning. He would just limit that meaning to very, very narrow categories. The only groups that Wong Kim Ark carves out exceptions for are Native Americans and foreign diplomats. Those aren't really categories of any significance. Native Americans still can get citizenship thanks to laws passed by Congress. And that's part of what Justice Kavanaugh's argument entails, is that we see, even with the exceptions, even with the children of parents, or the parents who have children who cannot get birthright citizenship, even in those cases, Congress can remedy that fact. Congress has historically remedied that fact. They can give citizenship to categories of children that don't otherwise have it. So he argues that, well, really, the 14th Amendment citizenship clause is not as all-encompassing as the majority interprets it to be. And of course, behind all of this is the question of immigration, right? The only reason this matters is because of the flood of immigration that we've had, illegal immigration, of course, illegal migration, invasion, really, because it's not immigration, over the past few years. Only in our modern circumstances has this even become a political question. It was really not even brought up in past decades because there was no scenario to merit it.
Right.
When you have a whole bunch of things that have happened since the 19th century in 1868, whenever this was passed, and you have airplanes, for just to use a simple example. And of course, many more incentives for people to come to America, welfare benefits and the like. The ballgame really changes. And that's something that Kavanaugh points out in his dissent, is that, the Constitution is not trapped in amber. And even while you're using originalism, you have to understand the effects of your decisions, the consequences of your decisions. And if it seems like you're reaching an absurd conclusion, you probably should step back a little bit. Alito makes that point too. And the trapped in amber point is a phrase that is often used against originalist ends, I would argue. But in this case, I think everyone agrees that the consequences are nowhere near rational. They are antithetical to preserving our country. Right. So you have to weigh those in some fashion. Even if that's what the Constitution requires, you have to ask, okay, does that part of the Constitution really, does that interpretation of the Constitution make sense with the whole idea of what the Constitution is, which is a document to preserve the Union. The Union, of course, predates the Constitution, and the Constitution is therefore subservient to it. You can't destroy the Union by upholding the Constitution. It's just not something that is possible. So if your interpretation leads you down that road, you might want to back up a little bit and reconsider your interpretation. And Justice Thomas offers a thoughtful counter-interpretation, where he says that allegiance is actually what's required under the 14th Amendment, not merely being born on U.S. soil. You have to prove domicile, you have to prove a number of things that, of course, illegal migrants have a difficult time proving most of the time.
Okay, all right. So, okay. Next case that you want to talk about.
Sure. I think the next case will be Chattree. It was a case decided on Fourth Amendment grounds. It's a very complicated case. It's not one that I can give a deep analysis of, but it's raised the question as to whether flock cameras are constitutional. That has been an ongoing debate recently. Flock cameras, as you know, are systems of automated license plate readers that are set up throughout neighborhoods and towns to spy on or surveil or watch, however you want to term it. Of course, police departments will use different terminology than citizens might, to watch the roads at different intersections.
It's been quite a topic here in our community. Quite a topic here.
Oh, really?
I don't think they've. I thought they were going to make a decision at the last city council meeting, but evidently they're postponing the decision. So I don't know what's going to happen here. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
They're notably they're quite unpopular. They're quite unpopular with citizens who have privacy concerns and don't like the idea that your entire travels throughout the city can be monitored in a database that is accessible to anyone for any length of time. Of course, these records are usually kept for only a number of weeks. Still, that's enough time to create a whole image, a whole pattern, a whole map of your travels during that time. And there's been many documented cases.
Do you think the database really would be accessible by anybody? I mean, would it be that easy?
Well, anybody in law enforcement. Whenever I say anybody, that's not meant to be a hyperbole for like any citizen. Obviously, they can't get into it. But whenever you're dealing with sets of data, you have a database that's open to an officer. It really only takes It only takes a knowledgeable officer, someone who knows what they're doing with IT, to export that and send it to somebody.
All right.
And in theory, it could be available to other people.
And I know there's been a case or two reported in the news. I've seen a case or two pointed, but I don't know. I do kind of side with the law enforcement argument on this. But go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead.
Fine. No, you're fine. I think it's a very difficult policy question, because obviously you want to preserve a general sense that privacy rights are a good thing, and you want people to feel secure and not have to worry about being spied on. But at the same time, you do want to solve these crimes, these nasty crimes that these cameras do help solve. And those are all interesting policy questions. The constitutional question is actually even more difficult, because the Supreme Court, for its Fourth Amendment jurisprudence, has been very distorted, very complicated, since about the 1960s. There was this big case called Katz, and that established a standard of looking at these Fourth Amendment rights through the lens of privacy. Previously, Fourth Amendment law was actually not a significant part of the law, and the originalist argument has only, originalism has only really taken hold post 1960s, and it has not been infused into the area of Fourth Amendment law in quite the same way that it's come about in First Amendment law or Second Amendment law. Today we have pretty originalist tests for certainly the Second Amendment. Under Bruin, you have a history and tradition test for your gun rights. Under the religious liberty clause, you have an originalist test. Under the Establishment Clause, you have a fairly originalist test. But for the Fourth Amendment, we're still stuck with this test from the 1960s. And it asks questions like, is this reasonable? And it has very vague questions about reasonableness, very vague questions about privacy and privacy interests, whether you have a privacy interest in whatever it is that's being searched or seized. And that's how the court decided Chattree. And
on these cameras, the argument of, you have a child abduction going on, and the ability to, if you got a license plate number, the ability to find that's a pretty strong argument. That's pretty strong. But
oh yeah, it's very effective as a tool. But so would be, mobile ALPRs, mobile cameras. And if you stick a camera to a drone and you fly the drone around the city, a lot of people are not going to be comfortable with that. Yeah. Which makes you wonder, why are they comfortable with the poll readers? And many aren't, because once you have that there's a certain threshold of surveillance that most people find disturbing. Which is an argument.
Quite honestly, we're getting close on time here. Can you talk a bit about originalism? You've mentioned originalism a number of times here, and the reason that caught my attention is that's one of the core values of Convention of States, is that we do believe in originalism. But I thought can you comment on it? Is there a point where originalism maybe goes too far? Do you understand what I'm saying? Is there, you mentioned something about there is a point where originalism, where we need to step back. Do you understand what I'm saying?
No, I understand, because this comes to the context of Barbara, where I said you have to consider the consequences of what you're doing as a judge or as someone who's doing constitutional analysis. And originalism, of course, has been the conservative legal methodology for the past, 50 years.
Right.
It's really been the only concept of a conservative legal methodology that we've had since the 20th century. But it's not the only conservative legal methodology, and it is a conservative legal methodology. There is a big debate about whether originalism is supposed to be, or is what conservatives should use moving forward. I would argue yes. I think originalism is the proper way to look at a text. But for example, in Barbara, there are different forms of originalism, and some forms, perhaps the one you see in Barbara, are not sufficient to major legal questions. They're just not workable, and they're not even workable. I would say they're not reasonable. If you, as I said, arrive at a constitutional conclusion that cuts against the whole foundation of the Constitution, then of course your constitutional interpretation is wrong, and whatever methodology got you there is probably wrong as well. There are forms of originalism that say you should only look at the text, textualism, pure textualism. Right. There's no consideration of history or tradition or context. There are forms that look at only the ratification history, only what happened before the text was ratified, the debates at the time. But anything that happened after, they say, is not relevant to the text. There's also people who think in terms of liquidation that post-ratification history is relevant. So there's all those kinds of debates. There's also debates about natural law and what kind of role natural law principles should play. And I would say that if originalism wants to continue, if we want a coherent conservative legal methodology to continue, we have to admit that it's a conservative methodology. A big a development that we've seen in recent years is that whenever originalism has overtaken the judicial system, overtaken the federal judiciary, liberal judges, Democratic appointed judges, use originalism, but they're not results free. They're not solely methodology oriented. They don't take their eyes off of the ultimate result. They just cast their analysis in originalist language, and at that point, originalism isn't useful anymore. If originalism can just be used by anybody to do anything that they want to the law, it's no better than living constitutionalism. Some would say that, oh, well, if that's what they're doing with originalism, it's not really originalism. But originalism is such a loose term and it's such a messy concept. I wouldn't say messy concept, a complicated concept. Difficult to get right, difficult to ascertain the public meaning, original public meaning. That there have to be explicitly conservative values underpinning it for it to actually work. Because what we're doing as legal conservatives is conserving the Constitution and our constitutional order. If our legal methodology fails at that, then we need to update that methodology. So originalism, I would say, is obviously a core value of convention of states, and it should be a core value to legal conservatives, but it shouldn't be the only value. It can't just operate alone and in space. Instead, I wouldn't say it goes too far. I would say it only gets you so far. You need to live within the context of what you're doing as a legal conservative whenever you're reading, reading the law and reading the Constitution.
Ethan, we're out of time, but will you come back and talk about some more cases with us? Not only some past cases like this, but I'd like for you to talk about some upcoming cases, and maybe kind of make this a series if you're up for it, because I think it's very interesting, and I think our viewers would appreciate this. So,
absolutely.
There's
a lot of big cases coming up. So
yeah, would you be willing to do that? I would. Don't want to put you on the spot here, but
don't worry about it.
Please think about it. We'll talk about that. Okay. And
sounds good. Yeah.
But I want to thank you very much. Like I said, we're out of time here tonight, but I want to thank you very much for sharing with us your thoughts on at least two cases, and then I threw in the concept of originalism. So I appreciate your comments on that too. So Ethan, I want to thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me on. Have a good night.
All right. Well, folks, I hope you enjoyed that. That's we were hoping to get to more cases than the two, but I kind of threw in a wrinkle there by asking him about originalism. But I think I'll talk to Ethan. I think we'll be bringing him back to talk further about past cases as well as upcoming cases. So that's it for tonight. Hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for tuning in. Good night.
He's going to be an excellent constitutional lawyer, Dale.
I think so. And yeah, I think as a matter of fact, we did talk after the interview, and I think we're going to try and get him back on the 21st of September, and perfect. For another part. Like I said, he had a couple other past cases that he was ready to talk about, but he's also interested in upcoming cases. So Kit, I got your message. I understand. I guess my microphone was causing an echo at the beginning or something.
Well, you left your mic open, so it was picking up the recording from your speakers. So.
Oh,
yeah,
really?
It took me a few minutes. I heard it, and it took me a few minutes really just to figure. Well, Dale left his mic open, so I shut it down for you while you were gone.
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Ken, I think we're going to. We have another interview that I recorded. As a matter of fact, I recorded it this afternoon on nuclear power, and it's about 25 minutes long. I think I'm going to. Maybe hold that till next week. because we got a couple more pieces that we want to play here. It's
Yep.
probably going to put us, right at the 8:30 mark, so or beyond. So
Okay.
is that
Sounds like a
okay with
plan.
you?
Sounds like a plan. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Well, here we got Dave's Daily Dose. This is something that is kind of it is a regular feature that we do. David Punt, State Director for Minnesota, Convention of States in Minnesota, has a radio program, and he generates these almost daily. So we get a hold of him, and this is a good one, I think, that he did for us. So let's get to Dave's Daily Dose.
National Basketball Association former star and former U.S. Senate candidate Royce White wants to play for a women's team in the WNBA. Sounds pretty ridiculous, doesn't it? Here's White's reasoning. I sometimes identify as a woman for the purpose of playing basketball. White took a look at the Women's National Basketball Association rules, and they say in Article 13, Section 1, that only players who are women are eligible to play. Okay, smarty pants, what's a woman? This is Dave's Daily Dose on BrokenRoadRadio.com. I'm David Allen Punt. Well, the rules don't say exactly. Players and coaches in the league say they welcome trans women, guys who decide to switch, not fight, and a trans woman WNBA player just retired in 2024. Lyshia Clarendon played for the WNBA for 12 years, averaged 7.6 points per game, 3.2 assists, and 2.7 rebounds. Not much. Royce could certainly beat that average. And he's not the only player that sees the human rights implications. WNBA players now average $600,000 a year, and a bunch of them make more than $1 million. Peanuts compared to the multi-millions that LeBron pulls down, but these are guys who are looking for work. Their playing days long behind them, and it sure beats working at the 7-Eleven for minimum wage. All because someone can't define what a woman happens to be. There are ways. Biological testing comes to mind. The WNBA board met earlier this week. They decided eventually to have another meeting. They're in a tough spot. They've made an arbitrary decision based on nothing but feelings and refused to make the hard choice. And forming a trans league would allow ex-NBA players, male players, to dominate another league. Years ago, an Iowa local chamber of commerce decided to rejuvenate a 1940s festival called the Sioux City Sioux Contest. The only qualifications listed in the entry form was red hair and blue eyes, like the song made famous by Gene Autry. My hair was red then, and I considered entering the contest because just like Royce White and the WNBA, nothing was said about verifiable gender. When the chamber had lunch at the station, half of the group wanted me to enter. The other half thought it would be a disgrace. So to keep the peace, I dropped out. Sad to say. The winner got a trip to LA and a screen test. Who knows how life would have turned out? And who knows which team will knuckle under and give Royce White and Enes Kanter Freedom a shot at beating up all those little girls while making a lot of money. And perhaps men and women's sports eventually will go the way of all other bad ideas. I'm David Allen Punt.
I'll tell you, this WNBA topic
Fiasco.
it's a
Fiasco.
fiasco. Yes. Well, I wasn't familiar. I knew nothing about this player that he says was a trans player that played 12 years in the WNBA. Is that what
Yeah.
he's saying?
Yeah, 12 years.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
But
I didn't even realize it was around for 12 years. That's how, it was just totally off the radar as far as I was concerned for
yeah,
many years.
yeah. But I heard it said some other stations, some other reports that the NBA, the National Basketball Association, is open to women.
Wow.
I mean, they're not specifically designated for men. If a woman had the talent and ability
Play.
to make a team, she could play in the NBA.
Wow. Didn't know
So,
that.
but because the NBA does not specify men National Basketball Association,
I see. Yeah.
whereas the WNBA specifies women.
Yeah, they've kind of put themselves in a box, and
Yeah.
it'll be interesting to see how that works out. On another note, Dale, and I don't want to go down a deep rabbit hole, but what's happening to our sports nowadays? Have you heard about this NCAA ruling? I think a judge has ruled on it already, but they wanted a fifth year availability for college, which would allow, I forget how many. I think it was 20 or 21 professional football players who have played in professional football to go back to play for college.
Yeah.
It's insane. I mean,
I
it's
haven't
insane
heard-
what's happening to our sports.
I just heard one guy had made a statement that he wanted to go back to play another year in college. Well, you know what it is? It's the money. It's
No, of course.
they can go back to college and make probably more money than they're making in their early NFL careers.
Yeah, they wouldn't be having that rookie payment schedule in the NFL, and they can make more
Yeah.
in 1 year playing college again. Yeah,
That's
and I think
amazing.
that we had talked about that at one time months ago, but there's got to be some restraints on that paying these college players. I mean, it's just it's out of hand, is what it is.
Well, and it's filtering down to the high school level.
Sure it is.
And now I don't know if it's anywhere in Indiana. Of course, who knows? Maybe. I don't think it's.
And the sad part about that is if it reaches down as far as high school and starts affecting these kids coming out that want to play pro football, if you think about the length of your career as a professional football player, yeah, you might make a lot of money in those years, but I know a lot of these professional football players who have made gobs of money and they end up broke in 5 or 6 years after they exit the NFL.
Yeah.
So it's not something that I think a lot of these kids are thinking about at that stage.
Oh no, certainly not. No. Okay, all right. Well, this woman issue, I think we're going to tackle that on our next COS perspective. I think.
Well, I don't know if we'll tackle it, Dale, but we'll certainly try.
All right. Okay. Well, one of our contributors been contributing with us for a long time. Gary Harbaugh has put together some thoughts on our national debt. And as we all know, we've gone over the 40 trillion mark. Doesn't make any difference which party's in control. Doesn't make any difference. Keeps going higher and higher. It's going to be the downfall. I tell you, it's.
They have no problem spending money that's not theirs. I know.
Yeah. And this is one of the 3 pillars of our resolution.
Yep.
To calling for a convention of states to propose amendments to the Constitution to address our national debt. And I firmly believe it's the only way that that's going to get resolved or get done.
Yeah, I agree.
Because Washington D.C. can't do this. Okay, let's take a listen to what Gary's got to say here.
Okay.
Hi, it's Gary with Convention of States. Get out the big hat today because we got another big topic to talk about. And the big topic is that the federal debt has now exceeded $40 trillion. You probably heard this, and it's not big news, but it's certainly news. and I want to talk about this in terms of 40 trillion is just really another milestone that we have passed on the road. It's not particularly significant, more so than 39. It's just a big round number, and so it deserves having us talk about it. Imagine that all of Americans are on a bus driving down a road in complete darkness. Headlights shine just a little ways ahead, but everybody's on the bus. It's being driven by Congress, and we're driving this bus into the unknown. The road, curves a little bit here and there. We're all in this bus. We have just passed another milestone at $40 trillion. And this road gets steeper and steeper downhill as we go along. So the bus goes faster and faster. And in some sense, it's really a bus that is already out of control. Again, it's driven by Congress. The blue party is inclined to spend. The red party is inclined to spend. Neither party in Congress shows any inclination to put limits on spending. They may have different priorities, but they both spend and see the debt go up higher and higher. The same thing is true for the administrations. It doesn't matter whether we have a Democrat president or a Republican president. The spending goes on, and it gets faster and faster. And it gets faster and faster as the road gets steeper, in part just because of the interest on the federal debt. What is the meaning of this growing debt? The real meaning of it is that at some point in the future, we will face a serious financial crisis as a result of the debt. Recently, you may have heard something about the need to defend the Japanese yen, and that is happening because it's really a flashing yellow light along the side of the road. Here's what's happening. The Japanese yen was getting too weak against the US dollar, and so the Japanese government decided to buy yen on the international markets to support the value of the yen. The place they have to go to get money to buy the yen is by selling US treasuries. When they sell US treasuries, that causes US interest rates to rise a little bit. And that is terribly threatening to the government. And so what did the Treasury and the Fed, I think the Treasury said, don't worry, Japan, we will loan you unlimited amounts of money to buy the yen, to support the value of the yen, just don't sell treasuries. And if they sell treasuries, it tends to push interest rates up. What happens if interest rates go up? If interest rates go up, that threatens two real solid pillars of America, which is the stock market and the value of real estate. When rates go up, stocks tend to go down. The worst bear market of the last 80 years happened in the 1970s when interest rates rose and stocks fell. They fell down to the point where, from a valuation perspective, in terms of price earnings ratios, down into single digits. If the stock market were to fall that far today, we would be talking about probably an 80% drop in stock prices. So the government absolutely does not want interest rates to rise. They don't want a serious bear market. Another thing that would be threatened would be the values of real estate. If interest rates rise a lot, real estate values go down. If interest rates rise a lot, it becomes harder to sell things like cars and manufactured goods. That means a lot more people becoming unemployed. So the U.S. government has to fight hard to keep interest rates down. Donald Trump has made no secret that he would like to see interest rates lowered by the Fed. The Fed doesn't have a lot of choice at some point when we are borrowing so much money. The situation with the Japanese yen is like a flashing yellow light telling us there's trouble ahead. A financial crisis probably lies somewhere in the future. I'm not predicting that this is going to happen anytime soon. It might happen next week, it might happen in 10 years. But I can assure you a financial crisis lies somewhere in the future if we do not get spending under control. Congress won't do it. Why won't they do it? Because they have no incentive to do it. They buy votes by spending money. They spend money on social programs, they spend money on defense, they spend money on this, that, and the other, and that buys them votes. So they're not going to limit spending. A convention of states is the only way to do that. The states, as sovereign entities, must be the adults in the room that say to the federal government, we're going to impose limits upon you, limits on the amount of money you can spend. That's the only way it's going to happen. If the state where you live is one of the 20 states that have said we are the adults in the room, we want to put limits on federal spending, good for you. We need to get that to 34 states. If your state has not, you need to contact your state legislators and tell them we need to be the adults in the room to tell the federal government to put limits on spending. This $40 trillion debt is clearly out of control. This milestone is just another milestone, but it's a milestone that says, hey, we're getting closer and closer to the day of reckoning. There's trouble ahead. It's time for the states to be the adults in the room, tell the federal government, we are going to impose upon you limits on spending through a constitutional amendment that comes out of a convention of the states. A convention of the states is not something to be afraid of. The thing you should be afraid of is what happens if we do not have a convention of states and do not impose limits on federal spending. Along with that, you can get term limits and some other things that are badly needed, but limits on spending, that's the topic of the day. And the $40 trillion debt is an indication that we have to do this because Congress will never limit its own spending.
There it is. Straight to the point.
Again. I mean, we've talked about this numerous times on COS today, and like Gary said, it's one of the pillars of our resolution calling for a convention of states,
and basically he's right. I mean, we all know they won't change. We all know they don't want to make a change. Why? Because they enjoy controlling money that is not theirs. And again, it all becomes down to election, re-election, and the other problems that money causes in our federal government. Corruption, to name one of them.
Yeah, when I first joined Convention of States, the national debt was a terrible $5 trillion.
Wow.
$5 trillion.
Yeah, I was not too far behind on that. So yeah, I mean, you think of where it's gone in a very, very short amount of time.
Yeah, we're talking about I don't know, since about 2013, 14, somewhere around there, $5 trillion, and it's just grown.
The other problem too, Dale, is I have a hard time, but you talk to anybody and ask them what $1 trillion looks like, and they have no idea.
Yeah, we've done that before too. It's amazing the difference. When you start comparing, using figures or
analysis,
to show the difference between about $1 million and even $1 million and $1 billion and $1 trillion. That's
and our government throws that name trillion around like it was crackers in your soup. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Ken, let's start wrapping up this evening. We've had a good program, and folks, if you want to find us, the best place would be to go to our YouTube channel, American Patriots for Convention of States. And Ken, I think you're going to post a link up there for everyone.
Looking for that now, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Again, our YouTube channel is American Patriots for Convention of States. There you will find not only the current broadcast, but you'll find past broadcasts that you can view at your leisure. American Patriots for Convention of States. Now, if you have comments or questions about tonight's broadcast, feel free to drop us an email at raiseyourvoicecos@gmail.com. That's raiseyourvoicecos@gmail.com. So, Ken, that'll be a wrap for tonight. We'll let Marengo Mike close us out here. Any viewer comments or questions that we need to address this evening?
Not tonight, Dale. Nothing there that's relative to what we've been talking about. I think everybody's just been sitting back and enjoying.
Yeah, evidently.
Catch it on the recording.
Yes. Okay, well, folks, we're closing out August here, and we are in the process of lining up content for September. Can't believe, Ken, it's almost it's September already, and
Where's the year going, Dale? I know, it's just flying by.
football season's about to start. I guess college football starts this coming weekend. Am I right?
Yeah, it kicks off this weekend in the NFL. I think September 9th is the first game. So
My grandsons in high school, they've already had 2 games already,
Wow.
so they've
Yeah.
gotten started.
goes fast. Goes fast.
So yeah, exciting time of the year for all of us. We love football. Our families very much football.
Yeah.
So
And we love Thanksgiving too. We don't want our newly elected people to take away our Thanksgiving holiday either. You know, I want to throw that in.
That's right. We're not. We believe that, and that is one of my favorite holidays throughout the year. Right?
It's another Are You Serious segment coming up.
Yeah, it is. All right, folks. Well, we'll let Marengo Mike close us out here, and that'll be it for our broadcast this evening. So, everyone, thank you for tuning in, and look for us next Monday, same time, 7 p.m. Eastern. So, good night, everyone.
Marengo Mike here with a reminder of the importance of this year as we continue to grow the grassroots army of volunteers and the mission of using the Constitution to fix the ills of our government. Use the QR code if you haven't signed the petition and consider using your talents to become an active volunteer.